Welcome to POSTCAST. The Utah Jazz have another gut-wrenching, heartbreaking, and dispiriting loss despite fabulous effort. Tonight, it's a Tyler Herro 3 at the horn that does them in, and they lose their fourth straight tonight to the Miami Heat as we wrap up the 2022 year. It's all coming up on POSTCAST. David Locke along with Ron Boone with you as the Utah Jazz fall on the final play of the game after remarkably finding a way to be tied as Lauri Markkanen got fouled on a three-point shot and hit all three free throws after the Jazz really had not played clutch well at all. And the story a lot of is that the Jazz have now lost 7 of their last 9 games in the clutch. The flip side is the Miami Heat, a veteran team with guys who've been to the NBA Finals, have now won 7 of their last 10 in the clutch. And let's go today. It's tied with 5 minutes left. The Jazz have battled all night. It's been a great game. You know, the first part of the game we can get into it in a minute, where if the Jazz hadn't come to play tonight, they would have gotten blasted because Miami just never is going to play you hard, and the Jazz matched it, which was great. But it's 5 minutes left, and the Jazz next 10 possessions, frankly, are not very good.
Yep.
And 3 turnovers. I don't think they had a field goal on what I would call a natural play.
I think it was 1 field goal.
Clarkson gets a follow. Markkanen gets a follow off a miss, but I don't believe that they had a field goal that was just they came down and scored on a bucket, if you understand what I mean by that. And so their 10 possessions are a turnover by Olynyk, 2 free throws by Markkanen, 2 turnovers back-to-back by Clarkson, a missed 3 by Olynyk, 2 free throws by Markkanen, a missed 3 by Clarkson. Clarkson misses 2 free throws. Clarkson makes 3. Markkanen makes 3 in there. Markkanen has a putback off one of those threes that scores, and Clarkson has a putback on one of his. So they score on 2 offensive rebounds. Really just a struggle for them in clutch right now offensively, and it's costing them basketball games.
If you can go back to that, the Jazz were up 5 with those 3 turnovers.
It was tied as we went to tied at 5 minutes left. Jordan Clarkson hit a basket with 5:36 left, and that made us tie. I just almost fell down. That would have been a capper for the night.
So those 3 turnovers was huge.
Yeah,
obviously very, very, very big. But, you know, the Jazz just continue to fight, and both teams making mistakes, fouling 3-point shots, putting guys on the free throw line, that type of thing, and took a hero shot, in order to win the ball game.
Yeah, on that final play, there's nothing to quibble about. Like, the
Absolutely
Jazz defended it well. They picked him up. You were worried they weren't going to pick him up. They picked him up. He got across half court. There were 2 guys on him. They didn't, he just hit and he's done that a few times. Tyler Herro is a late game marvel. And he did it. He did exactly that tonight. In real heartbreaking. All right, let's talk about. There's a lot of pieces to this game. It feels like there's a lot going on here. I don't want to underplay. I mean, I think as you look at the Jazz and where they are as a team, they've earned the right, as well as they've played this year now at 19 and 20, to be treated like a regular team. Right? We don't need to give them this. Oh well, they're young and this. And so when you lose late games consistently, that's the spot of assessment that needs to be done. In the midst of that, there are a bunch of other things going on. One is, I think, the fight and the resiliency. I thought it was really interesting. Will Hardy was talking about the Heat culture. Like, the Heat come in here. There's about 2 or 3 programs in this league, the Warriors, the Heat, the Spurs, who come in and they have an identity of who they are. And that's what Will wants to build. And one of the things he talked about was perseverance in the line of adversity. And I think we're seeing the Jazz with that characteristic in Will Hardy's opening year.
Putting yourself in the chance, giving yourself a chance to win, and the adversity that you go through in order to be a better basketball team, you have to learn from it, and all of that stuff, just all of that good stuff. But these are professional basketball players, and there are things or opportunities in this game that you would think professional basketball players would be better at, and maybe that's making free throws. But the difference, David, is clutch free throws. It's a big difference in making that 3-foot putt that could win you $1 million, and free throws that could keep you in the ball game or win the basketball game. And that's the big difference, and you talk about it a lot. Those clutch free throws are different than the regular free throw shooter that shoots shots that you shoot during the course of the game.
And frankly, regular shots are bothering us. In the final last 9 games, or I don't have tonight, but it's not great. We were shooting 35% in the clutch. We were 9 of 33 from 3, so we're below 30% from 3 in that span. We're 29th in the league offensively in clutch. Now, so the late 6 free throws by Clarkson and Markkanen will help our clutch numbers a great deal on those 2 possessions, so hopefully they'll be – but, that is a part of what's going on here. Some of the other things that I think are really interesting is what's going on with Walker Kessler. Walker Kessler, I believe, played the final 20 minutes of this game. He checked in at the 8:05 mark. Tonight, when Walker Kessler was on the floor, Miami shot 26 of 60. So that's about 43%. When Walker Kessler was off the floor, they shot 19 of 29. That I think is about 64%. I'm guessing a little bit there. I'm not that good. But that's a pretty dramatic difference. And what I think's exciting about this, early in the year, Walker Kessler was good defensively on second-team guys. He had a lot of Bam Adebayo minutes tonight, and that's a pretty tough matchup.
Yeah, that's a growth period that he'll cherish, and he'll learn a lot from it, especially if you start watching film. And you can just see his growth and how much better he's getting, not only at the help defense and all that kind of stuff, but the individual one-on-one type defense is where he's growing there as well. We talked about his strengths and his weaknesses, and one of his weaknesses was the fact that he wasn't strong enough. He plays straight up for the most part, like Rudy Gobert a lot, because guys like that like to block shots, they like to look bigger, but sometimes other guys get into your legs and all that kind of stuff, and you can't jump. He's learning that kind of things, and obviously he was effective tonight. He played 30-something minutes.
He did. A lot of other things. Kelly Olynyk looked like he got his vibe back tonight. Had a huge impact in this game. He hadn't looked quite right off the sprained ankle. And then Malik Beasley's going. We need Malik Beasley, as somebody said, was on a glacier. He was 5 of his last 34 on catch and shoot threes. He finally got that going. I think he finished with 5 threes tonight for Malik, which was important for the Jazz because they have to get. They had really gotten almost no help for Jordan Clarkson and Lauri Markkanen in the last 3 games, and they had to get some help for him tonight. They got that help, but it obviously wasn't enough, but it was important to see.
Well, if they're going to average 40 3-point shot attempts a ball game and just under 15 3 makes, he has to be a part of that because he's a 3-point shooter. As I've mentioned so many times, 243 point shots made last season. And I think right now with the number of threes that he takes, he's on track now to have one of those great years there as well.
Some of the other ththings that are tonight, the Jazz, Miami allows the most threes of anyone in the league. And the question was, could the Jazz keep their turnovers down, not turn it over too many times, and get those 3 looks? Because Miami plays to force turnovers. They forced the second most amount of turnovers, but they are willing to give up those 3s. Jazz had 16 turnovers, which is not terrible, frankly. And they got 40 of their 81 shots as 3s, which is outstanding, and they hit 17 of the 40. They did the things you needed to do to win this game.
Yeah, Miami gets 25 points off of those 16 turnovers, which is big there as well. But, as you mentioned, they don't turn it over. 12 turnovers a ball game. They're averaging 13 for the year. And one thing that I was talking about looking at is that how let me ask you, the zone affect the Jazz to the one spot? I thought the zone kept the Jazz in a short clock on a number of occasions because they just didn't react. And with Kessler on the floor, it's really ineffective to have him in the middle of the floor. So they were using him as a picker out on the floor, and it worked sometimes, but it didn't work enough, I think. So I thought the zone kind of bothered the Jazz.
So it probably bothered him a little, Ron. I think you're right. What was really the other side is that nobody's half-court defense could stop anyone. The defensive ratings going into the fourth quarter tonight, league average is 113. It's the historically highest rating we've ever had. The Jazz had a 134, and Miami had a 132. Now, both teams finished at 128, which tells you how close the game was. So, yeah, the Jazz dropped a little bit in that fourth quarter. They probably were down to about 115. So they were better than league average. They weren't as dominant as they were all night. So, yes, I think the zone slowed them down, and I think but I do think the Jazz had some success. Whether it was the zone that slowed them down or just, I don't know what's going on in clutch, but, I mean, those 3 turnovers late and the missed shots late,
really huge.
Up until the 5-minute mark, I bet if we, and I can do this, and I will send it to you. Can't do it now. It's not done, but I'll send it to you later today or tomorrow. I know you'll be really excited. Is if you can go stop it at the 5-minute mark, I'll bet our defensive rating up to that 5-minute mark or offensive rating was right back up to that 130. It didn't really bother us maybe until the final 5 minutes of the game, which kind of backs up this same reoccurring theme we're talking about, that all of a sudden clutch late game play is hard on this team right now.
Yeah, it is. And, Will has said many, many times, this team is growing and they'll get better. Bottom line.
And
he went to a 9-man rotation tonight. That seems to be keeping certain guys out on the floor.
Something just happened in college football, I'll tell you that. People are going crazy in here. I don't know what it was, but people are going nuts. So
it's not on the big screen.
Yeah. The other one I will say, and we keep hearing that the impressive thing about Will Hardy is his emotional intelligence. I think the most impressive part about Will is how unemotional he is and how kind of calm he has stayed in these. This is a real test for a head coach to go through a little stretch like this in your first year. And I think it was super important they started as well as they did, and he gained some confidence, and now he's got to go. This is part of his process to be the Eric Spoelstra or the Greg Popovich or one of these great coaches that he's likely to be in this league, is to go through a stretch like this and handle it and keep your wits about you.
So you're saying that the team is growing and so is the coach as
sure.
well.
He's 34 years old, his first year at coach.
And then you got a for the most part, a young coaching staff there as well. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, 2 stars tonight.
You got to go with Kessler, I think. I mean, he's just made such a big difference in the amount of minutes he was able to play tonight was tremendous. 6 offensive rebounds, 3 block shots. Did not have one against the Sacramento Kings last night, and so I thought that was huge. And then Marketing. I think you can give it to Marketing probably every night.
I'm going to go Malik Beasley tonight just because he was struggling so badly and he got off the schneid tonight. So I'm going to go Walker Kessler and Malik Beasley, only because, frankly, we could give it to Lowry Marketing every single night.
Yeah, good point.
All right, thanks very much for joining us here on POSTCAST. Have a happy New Year. Please be safe tonight, and we appreciate you joining us throughout. We'll be back with you on Tuesday. Thanks to all.